The EAPP, again, is the second document that a school will receive on your behalf. And there are 3 things that are typically required by schools that serve as the main components of most EAPPs. So those are your application, your personal statement, and your resume. There are also parts of your EAPP that are either optional or required on a case-by-case basis. Those may include a diversity statement, optional essays such as a Why XYZ school essay, and addenda. The application portion of your EAPP is typically very simple to fill out. The key thing that I want you to know about this part of your application, though, is that sometimes schools include optional questions on them, such as questions about your socioeconomic background, your parents' highest level of education, your parents' occupation, household income, etc. And from a holistic review stance, it's usually always going to be to your benefit to answer these kinds of questions. Although if you plan on writing an addendum about something like your LSAT score, but a school provides a question in the application itself that asks about your LSAT score, please know that it's usually better to simply answer the question on the application than to do an addendum, even if that means just copying and pasting what you would have put in your addendum. Many schools only allow a 2-page personal statement, while other schools allow a 3-page essay, and some even have no page limit. So the key regardless is knowing, what the rules are for each specific school that you're applying to and what their specific prompt and instructions say. I personally like to encourage students to try to write a 2-page essay that they can use for most of their applications, but you obviously have the discretion to write an essay that is however long the school will allow. A resume is typically the 3rd component of an EAPP that is usually required by most schools. Although some schools do make the resume optional, most admissions officers will advise you to always submit a resume, whether it's optional or not. So the key thing to know about your law school resume is that it's not like a professional resume in the sense that you only include information that's relevant to the role you're applying to. You don't have to include law-related stuff. A law school resume is actually the opposite of a professional resume in the sense that you ought to include every single thing that you have done since starting college on your resume. So everything that you've done outside being a student needs to be on your resume. And so when thinking about this from a holistic review lens, the purpose of your resume is essentially to show that you're well-rounded, can multitask, have done more than just being a student, and in some circumstances that you don't come from a privileged background. And so those are the things to think about as you're writing your resume.